papers were published on an internal Department of Defense website, but they've never been made public. 6 of them have now leaked out, and I brought along 2 more for you that have not been made public.
So these are like scientific reports based on the government study of UFOs. Okay, so they commissioned these papers. Only a handful have been released to the public. George happens to have a couple more.
So you're going to be the first person outside of the program other than me to see it.
What does it say?
They're called a DIRD. This is a Defense Intelligence Reference Document. This paper is on metamaterials. So how you could engineer existing Earth materials where you could duplicate what you're seeing up there. None of these papers, 2 of them actually, mention aliens or UFOs. They're strictly on what the state of our knowledge is or was as of 2009.
And they reference aliens and UFOs?
Only 2 of the papers do.
And how do they reference them?
Well, there's one of the papers that looks at the physical effects of people that come into contact with these unknown craft. And it's sort of like the effects of radiation or microwaves. There are physical effects, hundreds of cases that have been investigated, and that's what that paper looks at. And that's already out there.
Yeah, the harm that is done to the body, what they call close proximity to a UAP, which is a UFO. There are known effects to the human body that are horrible, and there was a study that focused on the witnesses they do know had close encounters, like military people, and then how it negatively impacted their body. So each of these reports, as he obtains them or as people find them, they're very illuminating to what our government knows.
There was one that looked at how you would track a hypersonic vehicle traveling through space. How difficult would it be? Now, it doesn't say UFOs, but it's looking at things that really travel fast that are coming in from space into our atmosphere. How would you track that? Now, when that paper was written in 2009, we didn't have hypersonic weapons. Now, the Russians claim they've got them. And now it's very timely because we're in a rush to develop those things. So that was one of the papers that I made public last year, and I interviewed the engineering professor who wrote it. He wasn't writing about UFOs. He was writing about the state of knowledge about hypersonic weapon systems back then. It's a similar thing for metamaterials. That's what this paper is how would you engineer materials so you could travel through space that would have, say you shoot it with microwaves, and it could develop certain special properties.
And
so
just to put into context maybe, because, here's the deal. Our government has now admitted there are UFOs. That's the world we're living in. They're unidentified objects or craft that seem to outpace, outmaneuver, actively jam our radar systems, even go over our military installations of high sensitivity. There are incursions. All of this is now said. It's a different world we're living in. However, the next thing that people are talking about now is, well, we also have materials. We'll call them metamaterials. Materials associated with UFO craft. They might even go as far as to say we have whole materials, craft, from somewhere else.
So when they're saying we have materials associated from crafts, are they saying that they have a crash?
Yes. Hal Puthoff, who was a physicist who worked with Bigelow on both NIDS and BASS, made a presentation in Las Vegas in June of 2018 where he says, yeah, we've got these materials and we're trying to figure out where they came from and how they were engineered, because some of them appear to be multi-layered that are beyond what is known engineering capabilities of humans. It looks like they would have had to have been made in, say, zero gravity of space, and we don't have any manufacturing plants up there. He implied that they came from crashes. Doesn't mean it's a UFO from Zeta Reticuli. It's crashed from somewhere, and we don't know whose it is. So they're trying to figure out whether we can duplicate it or not. And they got a bunch of samples. And
have you seen any of this stuff?
No, I haven't seen it. Bigelow and Hal have.
Have you?
Seen?
I've seen what people claim. So the Army now has these metamaterials that were famously put in through the Coast to Coast show.
Right.
It was called Art's Parts. I told you this last time. I was able to obtain them briefly and have 5 scientists from New Mexico that I knew, material scientists, physicists, interrogate, as they say, the samples for numerous days. I don't believe that I had access to the best equipment. We didn't find anything extraordinary. Other people have. So right now the Army has...
So but when you say you didn't find anything extraordinary, did you find anything ordinary?
No, they weren't ordinary.
These are the materials here?
That's the exact one of the exact pieces that I had in my hands and worked on with my team, and I filmed it all. But right now, because of TTSA, they've made a deal with the Army, and I think the Army has these parts. But I feel like we're missing the big note here. The big note is, a few years ago, UFOs are still laughable. Military doesn't look after that. Turns out we have programs that do. I'm suspecting, and maybe you can talk more about it, that the next piece of information is that there are reverse engineering programs, which will then make everybody have to look at Lazar's story a little bit differently once again. If we admit that we are trying to reverse engineer either materials or actual craft from somewhere else, intelligently designed metals or craft from somewhere else, if there are crash retrieval programs for vehicles we don't know where they're from, that's going to make me look at Bob's story even more differently.
Right, but isn't that a big if? I mean, if they've...
It's an interesting time.
It is, but I mean, there's no indication that they're willing to discuss some retrieved craft, right?
Yeah, I think that's a heavy lift. So supposedly the New York Times is working on that story. I think it'd be pretty hard for
More
them
than supposedly. They are.
Yeah, they are. They've been asking people about this stuff, but I mean, to get that into print, to get it past their editors, that's a hard deal, hard sell.
Alleged extraterrestrial material from the bottom of a wedge-shaped craft in the late 1940s made of 26 alternating layers, 1 to 4 microns dark bismuth. Is that how you say that?
Bismuth.
Bismuth. And 100 to 200 microns of silver, magnesium, zinc alloy. Each of the 6 pieces received from the U.S. Army source were formed with a curvature that tapered.
So basically they're saying there's no process that we know of that would create this alloy layered in that type of layer system. I actually have a piece out about this.
Isn't that kind of how they did samurai swords?
Ooh, that's cool. The
Yeah,
folding in the middle.
I'm not sure that this is alien of any kind, but it is of unknown origin. And
Well, Jacques Vallée has like 20, as I said last, Jacques fucking Vallée, he's got like 27 samples of things associated with crash retrieval. So if anybody has an archive of this stuff that's being scientifically interrogated right now, and his studies do show isotopic ratios that are not from this earth, so he's confident with his research. My big point...
He's confident with his research of what?
Well, you should talk with Jacques, but he...
Right, but what is he confident of that you can say
that he has alloys that came from UFO crashes or runoff.
Has anybody independently analyzed those things?
Yeah,
and
he's
agreed
got a
with
whole...
him?
yeah, he's got a presentation, he says.
Yeah, whole teams of people.
Well, how come this isn't like public knowledge? Why isn't this in the New York Times?
You got to talk with Jacques, whether you have him as a guest or not. You should talk with him.
How old is Jacques now?
He's getting up there because
He's in his 80s,
Yeah.
I think.
I would probably have to go to him, right, with a hazmat
he's-
suit
no,
on.
good
he's
shape.
a
Where's
strong
he at?
dude. He's a strong dude.
Where is he
San Francisco.
specifically? No.
Yeah. What's the address? Yeah.
Here's the thing. This program is ongoing.